Our investment in this theater, in the visual arts, in literary programs, they are generating measurable economic impact. But the orange economy needs your support. It needs proper support, better financing. It needs stronger intellectual property protection. It needs innovative policy, and it needs AI integration. Join me August 20th at the Caribbean Broadcasting Union's General Assembly right here in Barbados. Let's discuss how we in the media can catalyze our creative industries and bring a more prosperous Caribbean. Because investing in Caribbean creativity means investing in Caribbean prosperity.
And we're back.
Bam! It's like, you're back.
So people that want to take action and start to turn this around, like we're talking about, can do that at the empowermovement.org. And Otto, I guess people who want to learn crypto, right? And there's so many people out there that still don't really know much about crypto. They can join the Crypto Freedom Academy.
Yes, Crypto Freedom Academy. We have a bunch of different products depending on your willingness to dive in. So if you want to just dip your toes in, we have a mini course for you. If you want to go into the deep end and get all in and get all the layers, we have the high ticket offer.
Okay.
We also have a free academy too. So if you guys want to come in free to see the weekly lives.
Well, the price is right there. What's the website for people that want to do that?
Otogomes.live. So if you just go to my website right here, you get all the details there. If you want to just go straight into the free academy, I think the easiest way would probably just be to go to Instagram, go to my Instagram account, and there's the link there on the bio to access the academy for free.
Okay, great. And we'll give that info out again at the end, but just want to let people know that they can actually start taking advantage of the stuff we're talking about right now. Okay, so where do we go from here? Crypto. We got the, Otto, you've been involved in the crypto side of things for 10 years, right? And we just sort of touched on the idea that the Empower crypto, which is backed by the bills of exchange that are being billed to these people that have kind of amassed all this wealth deceptively. But that's a very different concept from Bitcoin. It was the first major or the first cryptocurrency that proved the concept. So I don't know, do you want to?
Yeah, I can break it down a little bit further. Bitcoin was the first of its kind when it comes to storage of value, right? So it had a unique ability to store value and transact on a global level. Since then, we've had 2.5 million, maybe 3 million projects built, equivalent to Bitcoin, which is a layer 1, which is like an operating system of a device like Windows or Apple. There's not many. There's only about 150 of those where they have their own operating system. They're not dependent on any other operating system, basically. And then you have the vast majority of projects, 2.5 million, 3 million that are layer 2 projects. That means that they're programs that were built on the layer 1. So it's like equivalent to like Zoom or, iChat or whatever. They're built on the operating system.
So would that be an example of that? Would that be, say, a token that's built on the Ethereum blockchain?
Yeah. So a token, and that's what you would call it. A layer 2 project built on a layer 1 is a token, right? Because usually you have an asset that represents the protocol. A layer 1, which is the operating system, we usually call a coin, because then that's like, oh, that's a real coin, as opposed to a token that's built on something else and dependent on something else. So with Cal's project, oh, actually, I don't think I know this detail, Cal. I just realized that. Is it going to be a layer 1 or is it going to be a layer 2?
Well, it all depends on how many people we can get to build a layer 1, or we will have to start on a layer 2 and then probably go to a layer 1.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's
so
usually what projects do. Oh, sorry. Finish your thought there, Cal.
Yeah, so we're just getting proof of just getting the concepts and all the details of the actual transactions, and then we'll figure out what chain it's going to go on, and possibly what Jimmy's building may even change blockchain. Like, he's pretty humble guy, but there's something going on there, and so we'll see what happens there. But
well, that's cool. Yeah, so that's usually the path that new projects take. Is they'll create the concept, the light paper, which describes the concept itself, and then you start building on a layer 2, right? You start building the code, the Solidity code on a chain that already exists, and then usually you start to work towards separating, or at least becoming agnostic. So you're not dependent on just one, or you create your own. That is when you have your own layer 1, that definitely brings more long-term viability, in my opinion. Like it just solidifies the project a little bit more. Again, because you're not dependent, and you can just create your own network, of people that believe in that specific ecosystem, and provide the code for them to download into their own devices. And there's millions and millions of devices out there. Everybody has a device already. We just have to give them the code. And then they connect using this hard internet that we have. So I think I lost train of thought. I was going down a rabbit hole with my thoughts. What was the question again?
Layer, like Bitcoin as compared to other.
So
Evan, I guess, yeah. So
Evan, compared to Bitcoin, it's you can't really compare right now. It's very different, right? It's not a layer 1 like Bitcoin is. It's not just focused on storage of value. It's not proof of work necessarily yet. Maybe eventually, and then it'll be a combination of proof of work with proof of contribution. But when it comes to the protocols itself, it's very different. Now, what Evan it's a code that is going to give us the ability to not only be able to store the value, improve the storage of it. So he's already created a system that is centralizing the information and keeping the documents decentralized. That's very important. So now we just have to shift that information to the blockchain and mint. You do like a 1-to-1 to what currently exists to the circulating supply of the coin that you're creating, or the token that you're creating. And that's very good too, by the way. I've done a lot of launches in the past, and one thing that's really important is the process of launching, like how you create the tokenomics or the economics. We call it the tokenomics, but the math around the distribution, the launch, why they were minted in the first place. Is there an inflation built into it? Remember, we talked about traditional banking concepts. If inflation is built into a project with no other reason than like, oh yeah, when we get new fresh cash in, we can mint more of this. Ooh, that's a red flag. That's a red flag, because that's proof of stake. That means like, if I come in with a bunch of money, I can control this ecosystem, right? I have more weight. That's not what's happening with Cal's project. Cal's project is weighted on proof of contribution. So if you don't do the work, you don't get the mint. So you have to do the work to be able to get the mint. And it's not proof of work in the traditional way of crypto, where you just like hook up a machine, but it's like you actually have to do the steps. And they created they're finalizing this, but creating an auditing system. So what incentivizes someone to stay in the ecosystem, holding their asset and being a part of it, is that every so often you'll get audited to make sure that you still have a hold of that. And then you get new coins, you get more rewards. So there's a reward system for staying, a part of that system, or staying a part of that ecosystem. But what's beautiful about this, and this is the comparable to Bitcoin, it's that it's all decentralized. It's all anonymous. Well, not anonymous, pseudo-anonymous. It's all permissionless. It's borderless. There's all these flavors to it that brings back control and power of the control of the wealth back to us, where we don't have an open door for siphoning. There's no like open door, open window for siphoning or control, or them reaching in, grabbing the value and siphoning and taking it away from us. I don't know if I answered your question. I usually go to rabbit holes and I'm like, I hope I answered the question there.
I know I'm something. How did I get off on this topic? Yeah, I know it happens.
It's interesting to think about because we're talking about what's backing Evan, but what is backing Bitcoin? Because in a sense, really the only thing backing Bitcoin, I mean, Satoshi or whoever he was who designed Bitcoin, I think one of the reasons it succeeded because he built in so much incentive for people to create the infrastructure to run the Bitcoin network. The whole idea of mining is, you're providing an incentive for people to stick a computer on the internet, and that becomes part of the infrastructure that manages Bitcoin. And in a sense, that is what backs Bitcoin. And I think that one of the aspects of Bitcoin is that it is a great store of value, and it's essentially because of the limitation, 21 million Bitcoins, and yet those 21 million Bitcoins theoretically can contain the entire value of the world economy, right? Mm-hmm. So there's so much incentive for people to say, you know what, I'm all in on this because I can see how this can go, to the moon, basically, right? So that got people, very excited about becoming part of the whole Bitcoin system. But it's, I think it's proven that it's not the best coin for transactions, in the sense that because there's so much of a reward and there's so much of a likelihood that it can keep increasing in value, that people have learned pretty quickly that you don't want to really spend Bitcoin because you're losing future value by doing that. Yeah. So, and I think that's one of the aspects of that I think has gone into the design of Evan and a lot of other coins too. But, people want to have a currency that is going to be good for transactions, because if we're going to have an economy at all, we need to do business with one another. We need to transact that money. So we don't want to have something that inhibits that. So where
does the value come from? What is it backed by? Was that the question?
Well, sure.
It's become an investment. So it's backed in the same way that if you had AT&T stock, it has value. But where's that coming from? From more people investing.
Well, I think
if people sell, then it drops. So
let me add a flavor to that, because yes, at the end of the day is what the theme of this is, like belief will give value, right? Belief drives value in this
exactly.
reality.
And one of the things that they're saying is, the United States is buying up that. Oh, that means they're buying in. Well, maybe they're buying in so that they can get it up to a certain point, and then they're going to pull the rug out in front of everybody. You ever think of that? And so there's like you said, it's all belief, but there's some inherent risks with Bitcoin, just like any investment. And so you got to go in with your eyes open. It is an investment, in my opinion. And that's why people aren't transacting with it, because they're storing as an investment. It's going to go up in so-called value, but they're valuing it in fiat dollars. You buy it in fiat dollars. It's not replacing the old system. It's an investment in the old system.
So what he's saying right there is very important. It's like, why are we pricing anything in dollars anymore? Why are we valuing anything in dollars anymore? At this point, it's just the increase of price of something. It just seems to me that it's just the correlation to the inflation rate. It's like, oh, they print more money and they have to increase the price. Look, I see Bitcoin. Whenever I ask that question, I go back down to the fundamentals. Something like 80% of the Bitcoin network is supported by regenerative electricity. So it's coming from a regenerative source. It's not coming from the grid. And how I see it is that, because there's like, I'll give you an example. There's a farmer that I know that is using Bitcoin to offset his increased cost of electricity during the peak hours here in Arizona. So between 4 and 7 in Arizona, you pay 4 times the rate. Okay, so you got to turn everything off. Like I turn off all my AC units. I turn everything off for those 3-4 hours. So what he does is he has to keep it going. So on the off peak hours, he's mining Bitcoin. And then on the on peak hours, he sells the Bitcoin to offset the costs. He does that every day. Or he does that, I think, once a week to get the money and then offset the cost for that week. So what is he doing? He's storing electricity in a digital ledger, a digital decentralized ledger. He's storing regenerative electricity. Well, maybe not him, but most are storing regenerative electricity that comes from nature. It's potential energy. We got to think about it like that. It's not being stored in batteries, right? It's being stored in this digital ecosystem. So Bitcoin on the fundamental level, it's backed by electricity. And then our belief that electricity will store and move and do what we want it to do.
Well, to me, that's one of the weaknesses of Bitcoin is the fact that it uses so much power, because based on the on its cryptography, that's what but a lot of those computations are super redundant. I mean, there's got to be a better way to mine or manage a crypto network to have valid cryptography on it that's not so expensive in terms of the resource usage.
Well, I always just compare it to the current monetary system, and I think about how much cost it takes to maintain the current monetary system, and then I go, it's incomparable.
Yeah,
I mean, you just think of you take one building, one Bank of America building, and you look at how much electricity they use. You look at how much water they use. The people that drive to and from work, how much fuel they're using. I mean, you start taking all that into account. The planes to go pick up cash around the world, the trucks to go pick up cash around the banks. I mean, there's so much cost. And then you look at something like Bitcoin. I'm not saying that Bitcoin should be a currency. I agree with that. I think that it's going to become like the people's reserve, like the gold reserve, but now it's the people's reserve. So I do agree with us having a more efficient currency to use. Whether it's the ones that are being introduced right now or not, I can't tell you that, because it's like whatever catches usually. And then it's on us too to become aware of what we're using so that we use the right ones and the ones that aren't under their control. But yeah, it's like really just becoming aware of that, man. It's tricky. It's tricky.
Well, we're working on that as well. Awareness is done through advertising and repetition and getting it into the group mind. That's how they do it, and so we just need to do what they do and flip it. And there's nothing they can do about it. I'm excited to be alive and watch all this unfold. All that genius talk, that's not me. Like, I'm just the guy kind of following the path, and I can see it, but I'm not the one making it up. Yeah, it's not.
You're guiding the ship, because I was in one of those meetings recently we were talking about AI, and you had you're like, look, it has to be this way. And so like there's the visionary, you're the visionary.
Yep, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of AI, I mean, people are talking about how much electricity AI is going to need. That the
Right.
levels of power generation are totally inadequate to meet the needs of AI as it develops, and people are increasingly talking about how AI and blockchain relate to each other. And Otto, have you done any thinking about that?
Yeah, I have. They are putting AI on the blockchain right now, for sure. Because why not? I mean, that makes total sense. It's an open system, and all the transactions are available, right? They're open source. A lot of people ask me that question: is it anonymous? And it's like, it's not anonymous. It's pseudo anonymous. It's anonymous like an email. So you create an email. If you share it and you let people know that that's your email, then they're going to know that that's you. Same thing with crypto. It's pseudo anonymous. So AI is being put on the blockchain right now because they're trying to collect that data. It's very difficult to purchase crypto as well at the moment, at least at the moment, because a lot of things have changed since the beginning of this year, because since Trump came back. But
know your
say it
client.
again.
What you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Yes. So KYC, know your client. It's anti-money laundering things that they have to do to make sure that the money is coming from positive sources. And this has been something that they've been doing for a while in the crypto space. I'd say for at least like 8 or 9 years. So what they're doing now, though, is if you want to buy crypto, you got to go through usually you have to go through a central exchange. You have to go through a third party where they're going to ask for your information, your name, your address, usually an ID, and then
something like that.
Yeah. And then you have a threshold limitation to buy and sell. So you have to give up your information, and then you buy the crypto. And then I always tell people, remove it from the exchange. Don't keep it in the hot wallet of the exchange. Move it to a cold storage device, something like this, like a treasure device. So there is something that we're doing now that I'm teaching my students called tumbling, or mixing your crypto. And to do this properly, you do it to a trust. So create a trust, a private pure trust, and then you and mix your crypto from one wallet to another one that is owned by the trust. And that's a physical separation right there, where the AI can't track it forward. And there's like 3 different ways to do this, depending on what's most efficient for you and cheapest for you. But you can mix the crypto and tumble it so that they can't track it. But yeah, AI is a big thing right now for that. And then also for what Cal's doing. And I think that's what you were mentioning, Cal, really quickly about, like, I think he's going to make something different. Like, he's going to change blockchain, because it seems like he wants to put AI into it to make it more efficient, or to make it easier to process, right? The auditing.
No,
maybe.
It's more going back to more of a database, because the blockchain essentially is a database. And he says that you can, instead of running the transactions through this massive thing, you can have you can set up sort of, I'm not going to be able to describe this, but it's more like, this is, we know that, so we don't have to keep going through there. This is verifiable. And so that bang, bing, bing. So it will speed up the transaction time and the amount of transaction that can happen. So it will make things way more efficient, still verifiable, and less power, less everything to run it. It's just bang. So that's what he's kind of seems like he's working on, and I don't think he even knows where
what he wants to do it. Yeah,
where it's all going to go. But he's just pushing out there into the frontier. So.
Yeah, I love that you said in that meeting that, like, we have to be very careful when using AI, because if we use it for creativity, for like coming up with the things, it's just a mirror. So if you're not feeding the right thing, it's going to go out there and start pulling from wherever to create the thing for you. But intentionally using it, which I believe is what we're trying to do here, is for administrative work, for things that are more redundancy steps, and just make the flow a little bit more efficient. But yeah,
there's some real train wrecks with AI. But if it's used, yeah, like you said, just to do some tasks that are monotonous, really, it can get through those really quickly, and it doesn't bog down, doesn't feel bored, or any of that stuff. So you can use it for that for sure.
I think one of the things that most people haven't wrapped their heads around yet is that the AI is going to change the way we interface with technology as a whole. Like right now we're used to having, computers in front of us, a screen, a cell phone, and all that is going to change dramatically. It certainly has the potential to change completely, so that we're going to be interacting with technology in completely different ways. And
it already is. There's a lot of AI out in the public feeds, and it's really hard to detect now. Like and yeah, you're right. How are you going to know if it gets that good at it? I don't know that it can get that good, but because men and women are like our whole being is actually not defined. We're way higher than zeros and ones or any kind of fixed things. So we will always be able to adapt and be able to detect it, but that's going to be those that work on that type of thing. But the general populace, they don't even know that they're watching AI now.
The details are so minuscule. I believe it'll always be detectable, like you said, but it's dependent on the individual's level of health. So like the AI will never surpass humans because it learns from humans. Mm-hmm. So it's going to grow, but we're going to grow first. We have to grow first for it to learn, to evolve. So I think it's just about that relationship. Again, it's like how you relate is going to make all the difference.
Yeah, you got to be self-aware. You got to be aware of what's going on. Like going back to what Otto said in the beginning, you've got to know who you are in this thing on so many levels. And I don't want to make it seem overwhelming because it's not, but it's not as simplistic as what we're being told. You got to know who you are and your potential capabilities. Develop your capabilities, develop your body, develop your spirit, your mind, all these things, and you will become sharper. You will just start to grow and adapt, for lack of a better word. And you can pick up on all this stuff. When digital music first came out, CDs, I could hear it. I can't hear it as well now because the bit rates are fast, but I could hear it. I could hear that, it really subtle, but it was like, no, I can, it's there. And when I hear analog, or if I hear like tape, 2-inch 16-track tape, it's a world of difference than what's out in like what we're being conditioned to hear as music and sound. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and AI and all this technology. We got to make sure we are understanding who we are in that, and that don't let it overtake us and start to lead us down some kind of path, because I've seen it, just on my Facebook feeds, and there's some train wrecks,
Okay.
Yeah. So
we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to get into this AI stuff more, because it's huge. The more I look into it, the huger it really is. So that's what we'll talk about when we come back. See you in a couple minutes.
Welcome to the Intra-African Trade Fair 2025, the gateway to abundant opportunity, the platform for more, access to a continent with more makers and creators, more technology and manufacturing capabilities, more innovators and collaborators, more information and knowledge, a continent of opportunities for business in more markets, and resources that accelerate progress and create space for more infrastructure, connectivity and networking, more creativity, production, and more deals for the people. Afrexim Bank, in collaboration with the African Union Commission, and the AFCFTA Secretariat brings you the 4th Intra-African Trade Fair, hosted by the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Over 2,000 exhibitors, 35,000 plus attendees, 140 plus countries, $44 billion in trade and investment opportunities. Register now and enter the gateway to new opportunities.
The Education Transformation Oversight Committee says 30% of the 365 recommendations in the Patterson Report have been implemented. The 2021 report examined weaknesses in Jamaica's education system and suggested solutions. The report calls for improved early childhood education, curriculum changes, and better teacher training. The Patterson Report also called for an end to automatic promotion.
Well, there was this state called South Carolina which attempted something. It didn't go over very well. In fact, it ended with the burning of the entire American South. So if Portland would like to try this out, by all means, I'm sure Tom Homan is waiting on his tippy toes to sprint in and deck whatever individual thinks he can throw the federal government out of a place where they have the right to uphold federal law. And this is a
Did the message reach you? See you in Barbados 2025.
You are watching Carib Vision.
The soft landing.
I want to go to Barbados now.
You should see all the cooking that happens on here. It's like, oh man, yeah, really, some good commercials there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate those cooking commercials at lunchtime here. Well, at least it's Toronto. You guys are still on breakfast time over there, but
I'm intermittent fasting with bulletproof coffee here, butter coffee.
Yeah, that's what I am too.
Yeah. So this whole AI thing, it's like it just seems to me it's going to be so seductive. I mean, we talk about transhumanism, and most people are like, "No thanks," right? But then when we start to get into this AI environment as we go forward with AI agents and all this kind of stuff, it's like if you're not using it in some way, you're just going to be left behind. You're going to be like, I guess a comparison would be how like the Mennonites, for example, who kind of turned their back on all this technology. I mean, they're probably right to do that in one sense. And here we are, though, we're trying to develop systems that are going to kind of take the power back from the powers that be. And we're using this technology to blockchain. I don't know to what extent, for example, InPower is envisioning how to use AI, but it's going to be a big thing, and everybody's either going to need to jump on that bandwagon or be living a completely different kind of lifestyle.
You can go.
I don't know. Go ahead.
So Empower, from what I understand and the meetings I've been in, Cal's very conscious about the use of AI and how to use it properly. And I can appreciate that, because from my own experience, there is a trap. Any tool we use, blockchain even, right? So these tools are not what's evil. Oh, my thumb. These tools are not what's evil, in my opinion. What's evil is the person that's yielding it, the person that's using it. How they're using it, how they're relating to it, how they're performing with it will determine how, what extreme it's being used in. So yeah, I think that AI, it can be a trap. It can be a total trap, especially with like content creation. I see a lot of videos out there that I'm like, even now, I'm like, I have to go really close and like really slowly to see if you can actually see the thing. So the video stuff is big. That's a big part of it. But I think the worst part of it is the direction that they're trying to move towards. My opinion is that it goes back to what I said earlier, right? Public sector are dead entities, dead registered entities. And physical, living, breathing men and women aren't really in control. It's the entities that are in control, and the humans are just adjusting themselves to the policies to make the thing keep going, to make sure the thing keeps going. I would say that we all agree to some level of extent currently in the current system, the manipulation is being perpetuated by humans, right? It's being perpetuated by the human beings. So I think every side kind of agrees that the human element will create some sort of distortion when it comes to public sector. When it comes to public sector, because why? Because that's how it's structured. We've created trust agreements in the public so that we can create entities that manage commerce. And so it's not that, the system isn't broken. I always talk about that too. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was built, how it was meant to work. It's just how we are individually relating to it. So my biggest fear is this push towards AI being like the governor or being like the leader, the one that makes the final decision. And it's like, but the AI told us, they said it, we all agreed, right, that this was the thing that was going to control, and we're taking away the human element. That's the trap. That's a big, big trap. And I see it like this. I see it as there's two worlds. So there's two worlds right now. There's this world that currently exists. It's this big fictional world. And then there's this smaller world, the Earth. There's world, and then there's Earth. The Earth that we're creating right now is commerce with physical, living, breathing men and women. It's like going back to the traditional biblical essence of storing value, of transacting, of trusting, recreating trusts. And so it's a tiny little Earth right now. This thing is a big world. I believe they're going to keep going. They're going to keep doing everything that we've all been talking about conspiracy-wise. I believe it will happen. It will happen in this world. But that world, as people wake up, is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And the people waking up are going to go like, oh, this doesn't feel good. What else can I do? Where can I go? And then this Earth, which is really, the difference is just it's a relationship, it's an awareness, it's an identity piece, it's a shift. And then you'll start joining the other options. And then this world will get bigger and bigger and bigger. This one will get smaller and smaller and smaller. Two separate systems. And you can function in both in the reality.
Like, why do we even need to have a system where dead entities are dealing with other dead entities? Like, could we not have a system?
Liability. I think it's a liability, more for liability protection. That's why we're given that. When you're born, you're given a grantor trust as a liability protection from public sector commerce. What's the problem? Is that most weren't taught how to be the agent of that liability protection. They just identify as it, and so you start receiving all liability. You feel it. Does that make sense?
If you follow the the letter from Mandel House to Woodrow Wilson, it explains the whole thing. And they knew it's on purpose that this has happened, like with forethought. They saw, I think that what happened is they saw what happened with the negotiable instruments as the world expanded, that they weren't actually paying these things. I'm putting these things out and nobody's coming to get their gold or silver. Okay, well, let's just keep doing this. And then it just expanded to a point where they went, well, what would happen if we just took the money off, like took the gold right off the money? Boom. So now they understand all this. They're writing these things and printing them off of printing presses, and nobody's ever going to come and collect, but it's still based on that premise. And if you understand that, then you can participate in it in a more educated way, and it doesn't take advantage of you. Like Otto said, there are rules, and if you understand those rules to a certain degree, it can't infringe upon you anymore. You can literally go, no, I'm not participating, and here's why. Boom, 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 boom. And if you do make me participate, I'm going to charge you these little pieces of paper. And boom, I just saw it, with experimentation, and they were all running from it. And so the system is really explained, whether that letter is real or not. The system is explained in that letter very clearly. All of even what Otto said about the birth and the pledging of the baby. So it's literally old pledging, ancient pledging from Law Merchant. And so we're in this system. They created a trust so that it's not slavery, but they just didn't tell anybody. You're expected to know this, and that's how it works.
So do you think they were trying to deliberately create a system that was going to exploit everybody?
Absolutely. If you read that letter, that's what it says. It will make us rich beyond our absolute wildest imaginations.
And the trick, here's the big trick, is that, and I don't know if this is written anywhere, but I do believe that they said this in the conversation. They said, we're going to be rich beyond our wildest dreams. And it's all we're going to put all the information out there. Like, we're going to let everyone know how to do this, but we're not going to teach them.
Yeah.
So that's the public sector trick, is you inform, you let people know that you're going to do it, and then you do it. And then
it even says even only 1 in a million will ever figure this out. And then we have plausible deniability. We'll just pretend like, no, he didn't, it just happened this way. But the whole thing's explained. They call it bills of lading, and that's your birth registration. Delivering the baby, and that's the bill of lading, and there's the goods, and on and on. It's all explained in there.
Okay, so
and they said they're going to have floating liens. So we'll have, like, floating liens are like a company. Well, Amazon tracks everything, but say a large company like Walmart, they don't know every item that's happened. Well, they do now, but say 20 years ago, you wouldn't know every item that you had. So you had, this is my assets. It's constantly going up. I'm buying more. I'm selling some, and it's called floating liens, and we're all floating liens. So they do a census every 5 years. So how much chattel have we got out there? How asset base? Therefore, we can borrow on that. It's all there. It's written all in that one letter.
So that when they put that together, that was sort of at the same time that the Federal Reserve was created, and so they were creating a new system in a sense.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So this happened. This was the Emancipation Proclamation era. That time when we were shifting away from involuntary slavery to voluntary slavery, essentially.
Yeah.
And it all had to do with the shift of how we classify the people that were slaves at the time. And I want to say that initially there was good intention, right, to be able to recreate how we do public commerce with these slaves at the time that were products, that they were like deliberate products, where now it's like unconscious. We're products again, but we're just choosing to be, or we're voluntarily being a part of it. But yeah, I think initially it was a good intention, but then I think little by little they saw that they could, manipulate it here, manipulate it there. And then 20, 30 years go by. or more, 40 years go by, right? 1913 is, and they're like, hey, let's officiate this. We've already been doing it for a while. We've already been recreating this thing. So let's officiate it.
Yeah.
And
once they got the central bank, once the central bank was in 1913, then the next step was to take the money off gold, issue birth certificates, and all these things all happened all at the same time. So they crashed the stock market, made it look like there was a depression. All they did was pull the money back. And they said, unless all the countries do this, this, and this, we're not putting any more money out because we have the central bank.
It was something like $25 an ounce that they priced the gold at when they took it from everyone. And then after they took it from everyone, they repriced it at $35.
Yeah.
And like overnight just inflated the currency. That was the first, you can see that if you go back to the charts, you can see that jump. And then since then, it's just been slowly going up.
Yeah. It's, you can see all the dots of how they did it. And I think it started, at least in part with the Hudson Bay Company. Mm-hmm. A lot of it comes from that ran for 200 years. And they started putting out their promissory notes, and everybody was using them. But in order to get the silver, it was like very difficult. You had to go up to northern Manitoba, get another bill of exchange, and then take that to London, England. So technically, yes, you could collect, but it was not practical. And when you start to run like that, hey, things are kind of going good. We're just writing stuff and we're paying for everything with that. And we're getting all these beaver pelts out and gold and all this stuff. And they took it to another level.
I have an analogy that I usually tell my students that I think would be really helpful. So think of the Wild West days. You're walking in the desert and you see in the distance a town, and you're like, I'm going to start walking towards this town. You walk to the town and you get there and you look around and people are wearing fish on their head. They're buying food with bananas. I don't know why that makes sense. They're just doing weird things. And you're like, all right, this is kind of weird. I'm just going to keep walking. So you keep walking and you keep walking, middle of the desert. And then you see another town. And like, oh, that's another town. Let's go there and see what's up. You get there and people are transacting, buying food with these green pieces of paper, and they're getting into these square boxes with 4 wheels, and they have to have this little card to allow them to do that. It's called a license, all these little things of that town. And you're like, all right, this feels a little bit better. Let me just park my car here for a second, park myself here for a second. And you start agreeing to the things. You get a refrigerator because you have electricity, and you get all these things. 30 years go by and you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been here for 30 years. And I have bills, and I have a debt, and I have all these things that you incurred in that town. And now you have a choice that you woke up. Do you stay there? That you remembered now that you were just walking in the desert, or do you get up and leave? And you start to re-embody yourself and go like, I'm done with this. Hey, cancel that, cancel this, cancel that. I'm out. So that's what this is. It's a membership program that started 120 years ago that got big enough to be global and recreate the public side of things. Yeah. So imagine if we do that again, if we create another membership, a private membership, and grow it enough over time, it becomes the new normal.
Exactly. That's the overall plan, because we can't change this system. It's too corrupt. You can't get all the corruption out. It's too much. So just create a whole new thing that everybody agrees is fair to everybody. And okay, I like this part. I'll stay here. And boom, that's it.
Well, and even if it's only a small group of people, this is what I love about this. Even if it's only like 1,000 people, let's say, right, that start to use these new systems. Well, that's 1,000 people that have recreated their relationship and are, functioning in reality in this new system. It's a proof of work that it does work. And what's great is that whatever happens in the narrative of that public side of things, of that system, it won't have a direct effect on this ecosystem. So it's like literally living on a different planet because of that separation.
Yeah. And that's the verse, come out of her. So, not partakers of her sins, debts, whatever, however you look at that. And that's what that is. Like, separate yourself from this thing. Build this, do that, and I will bless it. Basically, a voice from heaven said so. But if we don't do it, there's nothing to bless. There's nothing to judge. There's nothing to go, I like that. So we have to build it.
Yeah, performance dictates jurisdiction.
Yep.
Right, that's why I say that.
I'm just wondering if, because there's certain actions that are being taken. Just an example. I mean, we've heard about Bill Gates genetically modifying those mosquitoes and then releasing them. And God knows what the purpose of that is or whatever. But I mean, there's tremendous potential harm there. Like potential harm. We don't know. We haven't really seen actual harm, but there's potential harm there. And I'm just wondering, like, can sort of the ideas behind that InPower is using to be able to build back from the people that are causing the harm, but can that be used sort of preemptively to stop actions like that have tremendous potential harm?
Yes, I mean that's the premise of what we're going on. And like Otto said, they're not going to do this and they're not going to do that. Well, okay, well, we're going to bill all the money out of your system until you guys are paupers. Because it's only our belief in their money that gives us any value. So it doesn't matter how many trillions you've got. If we don't believe in that money system anymore.
But they can take actions that are still going to cause so much harm. Like, for example, if there were to be a war, a big world war or something like that.
Yep. So you'd have to go and get money. Oh, yeah, the money's zero. Yeah, no, that's not going to work. Bill Gates can do the mosquito thing because he has X amount of these things called dollars that we all believe in. That's how he's doing it. That's how they're all doing this. It's all money driven. Everything.
It's a catch. So it's a catch 22, right? So the process, it's a notice of liability with a condition. You write out a paper that says basically, hey, you either prove to us that this is healthy or it's not impacting health, or pay us $1 million.
Yep.
And if you don't pay us $1 million in 15 days, it's $1 million a day. Right? That's the condition. So then you send that. It's a catch 22. They're not going to prove it to you because they're not going to do it, and they're not going to pay you.
Yep.
So this is like an allegation, right? We're sending an allegation. That's a statement. Credit card statement is an allegation. We're sending an allegation saying, hey, this is happening. You're the trustee. You're supposed to be helping us. So respond to this or incur fees. Here's our schedule. Here's our fee schedule. We have the right to do that as physical, living, breathing men and women in this reality with contract law, trust law, equity jurisprudence. Like, we have all these law forms available to us to interact with the dead entity versions, but most don't, because they identify as the dead entity version and feel that they don't have control or they don't have power. Those with the most have power. And it's like, what does most mean? Most currency or most knowledge and awareness?
Really, it comes down to that, because they understand that money is not real, but they've foisted this hypnotic thing on us, and we all believe it. So the only thing we can do is, either we stop using money, which I don't think we can leap to that. It's just too far. Or we transition so that people can go, here, the wealth was over there and now it's over here. Oh, and now I have it. Oh, okay.
And this is so this is a great conversation to have, because I've been having this conversation recently about valuation and like, how do we carry value into our own ecosystems without using the dollar? Like, how do we do that? How do we price something without using the dollar? Right? That's the big question. What's great about blockchain is that we all have the capacity of creating coins that are representative of our skill or expertise and storing value into that. So if you sell a service or a product, you can have that represented by a tokenomic, like a token ecosystem. So imagine a future where the garbage man, it's the garbage coin, and the police officers, the police coin, and you have the accountant coin, the lawyer coin, right? And when, let's say the trash guy wants to do business with the lawyer guy, and he goes, hey, I got some trash coins for you to keep collecting your trash. Can you help me out with my lawyer stuff? And then you do a market with the trash coin and the lawyer coin. How do you price that? You price that based on their individual pricing against each other. And then you can create more markets. You can connect more markets to your ecosystem. For example, Bitcoin. That's where I think it's all going to stem from, right? That's why I call it the people's reserve, because you need something at the end to be backed by, quote unquote, backed by. That's not just the belief or like my own energy going into it. And that's unfortunate. That's just the unfortunate reality we're living in. But I think that's a transition we're in, where eventually blockchain will help us remember that we have the capacity of doing, transacting with each other without having a medium, essentially.
Yeah. So all we're doing is making bills of exchange based on the old legacy system, so they can't deny it, and the value is there according to their laws. And then we have the Evan, and so we worked on the name itself and the spelling and etymology, all of that, because we want people to say Evan, not dollar. Now it's valued in dollars so that you can understand it, like as we transition. So this is now, when I'm buying this thing, it's $4. Well, now it's for Evan, and then we'll just even how we vocalize will change. And so that's all we're doing. It's not valued. I mean, it's the value is in dollars because that's our current understanding. But you can't buy them in dollars. They're not for. It's not something you buy. It's something you attain, and it has value based on the legacy system, so you can understand it. So everybody can agree. Okay, yeah, an Evan is around $1, and because it's gonna move off of that, just on the way the tokenomics are. So it's gonna be worth more than $1. So that's what we're basing it on. So there is that basis of the actual bills of exchange that are decentralized in the world on paper in 3D or 2D, if you like, on paper. So that's how we're kind of valuing it, and everybody can, you got to do some education, but you can actually show what has happened and how that piece of paper has that value. And everything's notarized, witnessed, boom, 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 boom. So it's got the potential to have what is necessary to start a whole new ecosystem. And everybody can agree and everybody will prosper. There's still going to be some whales. We can't seem to get around the math, which maybe Otto, you can help with. There's still there's always, the math always ends up with a few people that have more than others. Like it's really hard to get around that because some people are putting more effort in, and we don't want to have a communist type situation, but we're hoping we can educate people so that they don't, become what's called a black hole of wealth, and and everything starts to suck to it. And there's
creative ways to reflow the value to be more toroidal. So that's something I teach in my academy, is that the old banking system, the soul of the old banking system, is flowing the energy to the few, like a pyramid, right? It's sucking from the bottom and then flowing to the top. That's actually the correct flow of energy for a pyramid. The vast majority of energy is at the bottom, at the base, and then it's flowing energy to the top, and then it shoots it out like this. The new systems, in my opinion, need to be more regenerative, toroidal based, right? So toroidal fields, that's more connected to nature, regeneration of nature. So there are clever ways, creative ways to recreate that, to make sure that it doesn't create the pyramid. Yeah, because I know that happens.
Well, I mean, the whole idea of interest, right, which is an essential part of the existing system, is probably the fundamental force that takes everybody's energy and funnels it to the very few. So, but how I mean that's an interesting idea. That this could be toroidal. Like, what does that look like specifically? Or
So that's a republic. That's essentially what a republic is. So pyramid is a hierarchy, right? It's the rule of three. So you have three that makes the top, and then you have three more, and you make the pyramid. The reason they choose that hierarchy is because that's the best way to keep secrets. That's the best way to, be efficient, to delegate. But a republic is not hierarchy. The hierarchy in law, it has more to do with maritime admiralty, which has to do with like the boats. You need a hierarchy on a boat because you're in the middle of an ocean and you need structure. Law of the land, everybody's walking on land. We're all on the same levels. And so it's more republic, right? Where nobody's above anyone else. What is above is the common sense, the law structure of common sense, trust law, contract law, common law of the land, don't kill, don't hurt, don't destroy, honor your agreements, basics. And so the toroidal is flat. If you look at a toroidal, like a magnet, for example, right? A magnet is flat, and the toroidal goes below and above it and flows the energy back into the middle, into the flat plane. Have a whole other conversation.
Don't go there. Don't say that word.
So when you look at it in law, then you can see that like, okay, everybody's on the same level playing field, where we are working together to bring back energy into our collective, into us as physical, living, breathing men and women. Very different way to relate, right? Very different way to build even. Like when you build with that in mindset, it's impossible to want to do the hierarchy because you start to feel it. You're like, I don't want to be the leader. I don't want to recreate dependency on me.
No. Well, in a sense, the pyramid or the hierarchical structure is a way for people to organize their collective efforts. For example, a corporation or a company that's making any kind of product usually is organized along that kind of two-dimensional hierarchy, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody at the top, people at the bottom, and people interacting with one another to get stuff done. It's just interesting. There was a guy. He lived in Toronto actually for a while. His name was Stafford Beer, and he did he looked at organizations from that point of view, and he tried to quantify the efficiency of a hierarchical organization by. And what he did was he would take an organizational chart, and he would measure how many steps for everybody in that organization to talk to everybody else in that organization. And so he came up with a number, which was a quantification of that efficiency. And then he said, okay, well, let's kind of take all our presuppositions away, and let's look at what would be the most efficient way to have an organization where everybody can talk to everybody and yet minimize that number so that it's more efficient. And he came up with basically this. It was a three-dimensional icosahedron that he came up with, which was, I think, theoretically at least, is worth looking at in terms of how to design an organization for maximum efficiency.
For me, it's like the public sector. Anytime men and women come together in the public sector to do something together, you need some sort of structure, right? You need to be able to be efficient, working together as a unit, as a group, as having a specific vision or direction that we want to move towards. I think the problem is that remember I mentioned about every transaction is a trust agreement. It's a trust. It's always a trust agreement. And the problem is that the trust agreement that was created for these public entities is not structured properly, because you have the administrator, right? You have the trustee, you have the beneficiary, you have the grantor. The beneficiary of these trust agreements is not the corporation. It's a private something. And then you have the grantors, which are probably the people, the customers adding value. And then the administrator is the LLC or the corporation. That's one form of a trust agreement for the public sector. But that structure siphons, because it's siphoning from the grantors and throwing it to the beneficiaries in the private sector. Well, what we're talking about is creating a trust agreement where it's an assembly of men and women working together for the benefit of the community itself, not the benefit of like some other random person that we don't know who it is. So you see the difference? So the structure works, it's just, or like the hierarchy idea works, but you have to create the trust properly. You have to create that a trust agreement with the physical men and women and the dead entity properly, or else it becomes a siphoning machine.
Right.
Well, I've got a lot of questions about all that. So let's take our last break of the show, and then we'll come back and we'll get into that a bit more.
Yeah.
Barbados will host the Caribbean Broadcasting Union's 56th Annual General Assembly under the theme Caribbean Media and the Orange Economy.
Sessions of the Assembly will be held at the Barbados Hilton Resort from August 18th to 20th.
The keynote speaker will be Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Amor Motley.
Special travel rates are available for delegates via our air partners LIAT 2020.
We invite you to register for this annual General Assembly by completing the form on our site www.caribroadcastunion.org.
See you in Barbados!
Come for CBU, stay for CariFesta, 22nd to 31st August 2025.
Driving change, connecting futures. The future isn't just coming, we're building it. In smart classrooms, by women leading the charge, by fearless Caribbean startups, with united policies and digital power for all. CTU ICT Week 2025, September 29th to October 3rd, Jamaica Pegasus, Kingston. Be there, be part of the future. Register now at ctu.int.
No need to bar and go walk with Satan. I burn them down because I know them rap.
She's talking about the Fit Vibes Cartel song.
My favorite Vibes Cartel song. Most girls love me so. Them kiss, them hug me so. Some say, oh you ugly so.
Then jungle justice for the rape and boy catch him if them jump on the coaster. Love to use money catch business. Just a squasher.
Sometimes sing my song. Let's fight. Protect us from the evil that serves us control.
You are watching Carib Vision.
right. Okay, we're back here. So yeah, Otto, so you mentioned from the beginning, like from the beginning of the show, you mentioned how everything is sort of this trust relationship. And I'm not sure I really understand what that means or what the implications are. And so, yeah, I just like to pursue that a little bit.
Yeah, I mentioned that everything is a trust because we are approached by officers and agents of the system often, right? If you get stopped by a cop, even nowadays, people just walking on the street, they're asking for IDs now because of this whole immigration stuff. So I see everything every time I'm in an interaction with any agent of these entities as a opportunity to go into commerce. It's an opportunity to go into negotiation, to go into contract. Always, 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 always. And so I started practicing in my life, like looking at every transaction I'm doing, like even like simple stuff. And this might be really out there, but like if you're driving your car and you stop at a red light, who's the grantor? Who's the beneficiary? Who's the trustee? And just kind of playing this game with every single transaction. On the receipt, when you go to Walmart or you go to a coffee shop and you sign the receipt, who's the beneficiary? Who's the grantor, right? Who's adding value to this and who's administrating it? And just seeing everything like that, because that's how this reality works. Everything is a trust agreement, and the trusts are structured differently. They're all very, very different from each other. And it's all officiated through these things that we sign or perform on. And so knowing who you are in the trust, okay, in these agreements can help you perform properly. I'll give you an example. You go and you sign for an application for a credit card at the bank. If you don't know who you are, you're probably going to do what most people do and just sign the name and then hand over the document, right? You just like people just sign whatever and then they hand it over. Because you didn't know who you were in that moment, you essentially gave away free money. You gave them this document that they are now going to sell and turn into currency, turn into fiat with that signature. That's where the value is really coming from. It's your performance. But if you know who you are, right? If you know who you are in that transaction, in the trust agreement, then you can perform properly. Instead of doing a blank endorsement, you can do a special endorsement. Special endorsement is a signature with writing. That's all it is. You just have to write something in there, and then it becomes special because now you're conscious, right? And you're like, I'm going to write some stuff here and let them know what this agreement really is, even though there's a bunch of other stuff written.
What would be a good example of something?
Without recourse, without prejudice, depending on the document, you can even use it as a coupon. And say pay to the order of, and then put your name in all caps, and then you sign as the agent of that all caps name. So that's a special endorsement performance. And I haven't done this yet when it comes to like vehicles, and like I have friends that are going and get cars and stuff, and I have my own beliefs around that. But essentially what happens is when they get that document, when the trust side gets that document, they can't deposit it into the system, they can't sell it because it's ordered. It's a special endorsement ordered to pay back to the one that signed it. And so like most of the time it goes through automatically, but then you have, because you did sign it in that way, you now have a claim, right? You now have something substantial to claim back and go, no, I already paid for it. There it is. It's endorsed. So
yeah, one of the simplest things you can do is just write non-negotiable on an angle across the whole face of the document, and then they can't monetize it.
Yeah, non-negotiable.
It pays once, but they can't pass it on. So it becomes kind of.
I've done this. So I have practiced this with a ticket. I was stopped by a cop twice this year. The first time I just special endorsed it. The second time he didn't give me the ticket. Oh, and I can tell you what I did. But the first time I just special endorsed it. I was kind of like, I had just started to really want to practice this stuff. So when I was stopped by the cop, I was still a little jittery. But I gave him my license. He wrote the ticket. And then when I got the ticket, I wrote without recourse, without prejudice. I didn't sign it and just gave it back. 2 months go by, I got another ticket, but in that time frame, I was looking online to see if I could see the ticket. I want to see it be registered. Never showed up in the system. Never showed up. And I want to say it's because I signed that way. When they got back there, they're like, we can't do anything with this. We can't use this. Because
so normally you would just sign it, give it back to the cop, and then it goes into the system.
Even if you don't sign it, and you don't put anything at all, that's an agreement. That's also an agreement. So special endorsing is signing it with intent, right? With words.
Yeah. Because the cop can sign it and it's just as valid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just changes the tenure of the instrument. Just needs a signature.
So that's why it's so important to know who you are in these trust agreements, because then you can perform properly and then you can flow the energy the way that you want it to flow. But again, you have to know what you're doing, right? You have to be aware of like how to relate, how to do the writing.
So are we in these situations, should we always look at ourselves as the beneficiary, or is it always different?
It's always different. Yeah, it's always different. You really have to become aware. Again, that's why that's like the embodiment is so important. And it's just those three, right? It's just those three really. And then there's like variations of that, but no, they're different. And knowing the difference is what's going to determine if you're going to be feel trapped or actually benefit from it.
So how do you know which one you are in a situation? Can you give us any
examples
about how to do that?
Yeah. So you have the grantor trustor, which is the one adding value, the one that's depositing value into the account. You have the trustee, which is the administrator. So that is the one that is, officiating the registrations or the bank accounts, the one that's writing the checks, the one that's making sure that the processes of the trust contract are abided by, right? So like the laws inside the trust. And then you have the beneficiary. Beneficiary just benefits, right? The one that can use the assets. I had a friend that he was a trust fund baby, and his trust had a plane, and he would say, "This is not my plane. I'm just borrowing it." He would say that very often, and that's true. It wasn't his plane; it was the trust's plane, but he was the beneficiary, so he could always use it. So you have to know who you are. Am I benefiting from this? Am I just the beneficiary? Am I adding value? Am I administrating? Am I making sure that the rules are abided by and things are flowing? Am I two things? Am I the beneficiary and grantor? It depends on the trust too. You can be all three. You can be all three, for your own trust. You can have a triple hierarchy, the triangle hierarchy inside yourself. And then you got to know when to put on the right hat at any given moment. Does that make sense? So like that's why it's so important to know who you are at any given moment. Well, it's important to know that you are the physical man first. And then when you're going to do commerce in public, which hat do you have on? Are you the grantor, the beneficiary, or the trustee?
Yeah. I guess, are we rarely the administrator, the trustee?
We're never
Rarely.
rarely, I would say, not never, unless you make your own stuff, but rarely, very, very, very rarely, because your grantor trust that you were given when you were born, the dead version of yourself, the dead entity version of yourself, it has two titles, an equitable title and a legal title. The equitable title is represented by the birth certificate. The legal title is held by the trustee, which is the Federal Reserve or the Reserve Bank that your Social Security number was created in. So they administer that. That's what creates an irrevocable trust.
Yeah. So the court is almost always the trustee or representing the trustee if the Queen is the trustee in Canada or whatever. It's hard to say who it is, but they are administering as agent for the trustee or part of the trustee thing. But they act as trustee in most court situations, the judge and the clerk.
So unless you take back control of your estate and you fire them as trustees, which you can with something called a merger doctrine, they will always have jurisdiction over you.
Yeah.
With
or you
your
create
name.
another trust, or you create another trustee, which is the whole using the treasury as a trustee.
Yeah. So this
on the same asset on the birth certificate. So now you've got, I wouldn't say a conflict, but you've got access to another trustee that you can actually, point to. Like, because when you're in court, it's hard to figure out who's doing what, and they don't tell you. So,
well, the merger, I don't know if you know this, Cal, but the merger doctrine, this is the SPCHTC. The merger doctrine allows you to fire them as trustees and revest. So you can revoke their legal title hold and revest it to your own trust. So then you can just create your own private trust, revest the certificate, because you give back your birth certificate in this process, and then you recreate a certificate, and then you revest that into your own trust. Every certificate has a cap of $100 million. So you can do like a $100 million certificate into this trust that you control. So that is a process. It's much more difficult to do that. I would suggest just creating a private pure trust that you are holding both legal and equitable title to, and then transferring all your assets, everything, your businesses, your transactions to the trust.
Yeah.
And then creating that separation from your personal name. So, and then you'll own everything. You'll own nothing but control everything.
Yeah.
And be happy.
Yeah. So, and you can also put a lien against the trust and that whole name. So you can have a security agreement, get it notarized, witnessed, and et cetera, and then now you are first in line on the trust that they're running, and you have another entity, however you set that up, that can kind of jump the line. There's lots of things you can do if you figure it out, because I started by fighting it. You can't make me this and you can't make me that, and I'm not the capitalized name, and all I got was just constant. And then once I acted like a merchant, then they were running, and I went, oh, okay, well, this is much better. I don't agree with this whole thing. I like what's happening in my life, where they're afraid of me.
So are you doing the trust thing too, Cal? Or
I just kept doing it and kept studying. No.
I think we're losing you a bit.
Yeah, I think his internet got a little.
The thing I did, probably my
it's
probably my buttons.
Well, we're getting pretty close to the end here. Go ahead, Cal.
Yeah, so I don't have a trust. I went down the trust road years ago, and it seemed like it was just a confusing goalpost moving thing. And I just went, you know what? I'm just going to send my birth certificate to the treasury. If I need a trustee on that, that's where I'm, they can't say that I don't have it. And they seem to run from it. So I'm like, yes, this works for me. And I don't have a lot of assets, so I don't, it's not desirable for me to try and protect my assets, because I don't really have any. I got a lot of drums, but that's about it. So
and
it's not something that I really pursued, right?
Right. All right. Otto, do you teach this stuff? Is that part of what you teach?
Yeah. So I have a course that I launched the beginning of this year called Taxes Are Voluntary. It's $111. It's a summary of 2 weeks of my high ticket offer that I do. I have a 10-week program that teaches all of this stuff. Not only the law stuff and how to create trusts and a PMA, but also how to, there you go. That's the course. So I summarized it all into a 4-hour webinar, this course that I created, Taxes Are Voluntary. And that teaches you how to create a pure irrevocable private trust using contract trust law, and then UCC1 filing to officiate it. And then you can just start to, then how to get the FEIN number. You can get an EIN, FEIN number from the IRS to then open up a bank account. I've had I'm going to say 2, maybe 3 students that have already pursued this recently. This is a fairly new thing that I've been teaching because I had to educate myself and practice myself. So it's only been in the last like 8-9 months that I've been incorporating this into the journey. But so far, yeah, we've had 2 or 3 students that have already, we actually have a student that lives in Canada and created a pure trust in San Diego, a private pure trust in San Diego that he holds legal and equitable title to. Got an FEIN number from the IRS. It's called a Title 8 organization or unincorporated organization, EIN. And,
okay. So yeah, we're just out of time here, but people can follow up. They can go to your website, and I'll put the links down below as well. And thanks for doing this today, Otto and Cal, as usual. People can go to empowermovement.org as well. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll be back on Monday for more here on Care Vision.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Awesome, Otto.